So when I was 2 years old, my parents had just moved to a new town. My dad would take me along this certain path to all the shops and everything. So one day, I didn't really know the names of the streets, but I knew the turns, the smells, the feel of it, right? So one day, my parents had left me with the neighbors, and I decided to retrace this path, all by myself. No plan, no map, just a tiny human with maximum confidence. I walked for maybe 2-3 kilometers, utterly convinced that I could come back. Fortunately, my mom was walking back in the same path, and she found me. To her, this was absolutely terrifying. To me, it was simple. I just wanted to see where the road went. See, that was my default setting. I couldn't just sit idle. My mind, it always needed a puzzle, a question, or a mystery to unravel. So when you think of your own mind as a portrait, what do you see? Is it a single line drawn in black, all neat and predictable? Or is it a wild, layered canvas full of colors, textures, and brushstrokes that don't always match, but somehow belong together? When I think of my own mind, I see it as a work in progress, a painting that's never really finished. And every stage of life, every role we play, every risk we take, it adds something to it. Some stages, they splash bright, messy colors. Others add more precise and straight lines. Some even add shadows that you didn't really want, but later realize it makes the whole picture much more richer. Today, I want to take you through the portrait of my mind. From a curious kid to a logical engineer, to a steady employee, to the risk-hungry entrepreneur that I am today, and share with you a surprising truth, that I found along the way, that success isn't about picking a single mindset, but rather about learning to paint with all of them at once. You see, there are always several mindsets at play inside us. And the one that gets you the win is usually the mindset that takes the daring path, but assisted with all other mindsets. And if I trace my portrait to its very first brushstroke, this is where I land, with me almost becoming a lost kid, all for the sake of curiosity. So when I was in 2nd or 3rd grade, I started writing these Olympiad exams. And they'd send us these materials that was usually meant for kids like 1 or 2 grades above me. For me, that was the good stuff. I'd have my nose buried in them, refusing to let up till I had cracked all of them. Summers were the real playgrounds of my curiosity. When my mom, a school principal, she'd usually have work in the summers. So I'd tag along with her to the school, which was still being constructed. So while other kids were playing and whatnot, I was shadowing construction workers, just asking them millions of questions on what they were doing, why is it happening, how is it happening. See, to me, watching a wall rise from bricks was just as exciting as maybe playing cricket in the field. Later on, I started spending summers in my dad's college. That's where I met my first love, computers. So apart from the games and the paint application, I quickly figured out how to solve minor glitches, troubleshoot problems, reinstall OSs, even assemble an entire CPU from scratch. And probably my proudest achievement of all at the time, downloading from torrents. I didn't really know or care about the legalities of it all at the time. I was just very happy that I was able to figure it out. See, I didn't really realize it at the time, but I was training my mind in the art of exploration, in the art of taking things apart and understanding them. Now that I look back, this was the first color in my portrait. A big, messy, vibrant splash of curiosity. Just curiosity without limits, without the fear of being wrong or without the fear of getting into trouble or failing. It was just pure wonder. It was a part of my mind that believed everything could and should be explored. And it still does. Of course, curiosity is great till life hands you flowcharts, algorithms, assignments with deadlines, and an education system that just really loves structure. This is when the engineer in me began to take shape. For me, that shift started occurring early in college. The first spark that I remember, it didn't come from any textbook or anything, but rather from my best friend, Vinay. When I saw his GitHub for the first time, my jaw just dropped. I mean, this guy had a profile that would put fourth years to shame. Different technologies, various stacks, just many, many different working tech products. It was like walking into a library of things that a CS engineer could build. It was a turning point for me. It really opened up my eyes to the possibilities of computer science. I realized that the playground was so much bigger than just my syllabus or reinstalling OSs. I found my tribe in the CSI club on campus. Now, we weren't just exchanging notes. We were swapping ideas, debugging together at midnights, getting stuck, then getting unstuck, and laughing together about stuff that only software engineers could ever find funny. Collaborating with seniors, learning and understanding from their projects and adding my own bit to theirs, this was an education that no classroom could ever give me. And I absolutely loved it. In fact, the most productive things that I ever did in campus, they weren't tied to my academics at all. No. Those were the internships I took on, the projects that I worked on, the code that eventually found its way onto my resume. You see, nobody was forcing me to do these things. And that was the best part. It was just pure joy, a mix of problem solving and discovery. The engineer mindset was really my second brushstroke. It gave shape to my curiosity. It turned what-if questions into how-to plans. The kid in me still wanted to explore everything, but now I had the tools and the know-how to actually focus and build something out of my curiosity. So by the time I was in college, the startup wave was already in full swing, and I was completely grooving to it. In the second year, a few friends and I tried to build this platform called The Odd Jobs. It's similar to what the urban company does today. Now we could build, we could code, but selling, marketing, actually getting people to use our product, we had no clue. We failed fast. But I learned something very important that day, that building the product, that's just half the game. In my third year, I met my complement Daivik, who would later go on to become my co-founder with ChangePay. Now, we were tinkering with ideas even then. We even built a bunch of projects for ChangePay that didn't exactly work out or even work properly. But between that and my internships, I began to understand the maker side of technology deeply. But something was missing. See, all the projects that I had worked on so far, they were like prototypes, fun to build, but not quite production ready. I realized that if I ever wanted to lead my own startup someday, I had to see the entire software lifecycle up close. I needed to understand how these big products are designed, developed, tested, deployed, and maintained, and how teams coordinate with each other to get this done, how all of these different roles sort of fit their pieces in together to make the one working whole. That's why I decided to take on a corporate job. Not because I'd given up on my startup dream, but because I wanted to be ready when the time came. I wanted to understand what done looks like in a real production-grade environment. Now, the employee mindset added a few more things to my perspective. A few more things to my portrait, namely perspective and the craft of building things that endure. You see, it's not enough that your code works. It has to work when thousands of people use it in ways that you can never, ever imagine. It also taught me how to turn a concept into something real, stable, and ready for the world. And it also gave me a front row seat to see how these large teams operated and moved together, sort of like gears in a machine, and how fragile this machine can be without proper trust, communication, and leadership. Now, by the time I was stepping into the real world of business, I'd already painted a few layers on my portrait, mainly curiosity, structured logic, and a systems perspective. But the real magic started to happen when all these layers evolved into the entrepreneurial mindset. I officially joined ChangePay in March of 2020, 2 years after my college. I had all the enthusiasm and zeal in the world and felt like I was finally ready to take on the startup challenge. We had close to 1 crore in the bank. But then, in the very same month, the world around us just shut down. COVID hit us, and all the colleges had to close. Our entire market just disappeared overnight. Understand that we didn't just slow down, we had to completely shut operations. Now, this was a harsh lesson for any entrepreneur to learn, that no amount of planning or passion can control timing. But it also gave me something rare: time. Over the next few months, I poured myself into refining our product, just addressing every nook and cranny. And then life threw me another curveball. Our early investor in ChangePay invited me to work on a related venture, eSamudai, building digital infrastructure for local e-commerce. Now, this detour actually turned out to be a gift in disguise. Because at eSamudai, I built the very tech stack that now powers ChangePay, a more reliable, more scalable, and a more future-proof system than the one we had. 2 years rolled on before colleges opened up again. And when they finally did, I wasn't coming back to ChangePay with the same ideas. I was coming back with a product that was stress-tested, sharpened, and ready for real-world scale. That's when ChangePay came alive again. A campus commerce solution that enables students such as yourself to order food, beverages, snacks, stationery, laundry, etc., and have all of them delivered very conveniently into a smart locker that is placed right at your hostel steps. Running on a foundation that was built during a time which felt like a pause, but was actually preparation. In the entrepreneurial mindset, I learned that even the shadows on your portrait can add depth. The moments that felt like wasted time actually turned out to be the underpainting, the subtle base that made my portrait much more vivid. A delay isn't always a derailment. Sometimes it's just a forced pause that lets you sharpen your claws. A detour can show you landscapes that you would have otherwise missed. And a dead end, well, that can teach you more about direction than any straight road ever could. Looking back, I realized that I wasn't building ChangePay in isolation. I was drawing on the curiosity of my childhood, the habit of asking why till I got to a satisfactory answer. I was relying on the problem-solving skills I picked up in my engineering days, where every new challenge was like a puzzle to be taken apart and rebuilt. I was leaning on the perspectives I had gained as an employee as to how teams worked and turned an idea into a living, breathing product. You see, each frame of mind that came, it didn't replace the one behind it. They just stacked on top, adding more color, depth, visuals, sharpness, contrast. See, without the curiosity, there would be no spark. Without the engineer, no structure or logic. And without the employee, no perspective. And without the entrepreneur, I wouldn't have the courage to keep painting through all the uncertainties. See, that is the power of multiple mindsets. It doesn't just shape what you do, it shapes who you become. Life will keep handing you new brushes, new colors, and even a few unwanted shades. But if you keep painting, keep layering, keep learning, and keep evolving, one day you'll step back and realize that the portrait was never just about the picture. It was about the artist you became while making it. Thank you for listening.